All right.
Going.
All right. Oh no, I love it. So 1500s is known for many, many different things, many revolutions. But one of the major revolutions for human history was uh, invention of the modern press.
Mm,
And invention of the modern press means either refinement of the existing printing press techniques to something that became useful, or
okay.
it could be a brand new device. It doesn't matter. It became functional. And when it became functional, it was done by a printer named Gutenberg
Gothenburg. Is that
in
Germany?
Germany. In Germany,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's either 1400s, like 1450, or early 1500s, around that time. We can look it up. So then what happens is that the first thing that gets printed is Bible.
Okay. Now that is that like a bad thing or a good thing? Well, the
Yes.
only my only perspective
Uh-huh.
is that like the only or the one of the first books?
The first book printed on that printing press.
Okay.
And why? Because there was a great need. As a printer, I want to print
Mm,
books, which are highly in demand. The
right.
Bible
Okay.
is in demand, right? So it has nothing to do with quote unquote religion. It's just looking out and say, what books that I can print and then make some money, right?
Right.
So Bible get printed. But then guess what? This book gets printed, but finally pretty much every household has a Bible.
Right.
So that's when a beautiful transition happens. One of the most fascinating transition happens is that now the printers are looking for other books to print. So
Right.
first they go around in Europe and then pick up all the European origin books. Then they expand that circle because they're done with printing all the known European books that they
They
wanted.
have to go elsewhere.
So then they come to East, Persia, India, and then they start ext- picking up all the books from here,
Hmm.
from East, for example, Confucius, uh, Bhagavad Gita, uh, the books from Iran, Persia, and they start printing those. And of course, these books are not in German language or European languages, so they have to translate them. And as soon as they translate them, suddenly all that human knowledge which was
It's
existing,
expanded.
it suddenly
Or
expanded, and Germany became the center of learning. German universities became the center of arts, music, science, you know, and then within science, physics, chemistry. If you see the names that I'm using, there were a lot of them were from German origin or trained in Germany.
it's crazy that the power of a book
Yes.
and then the power of language, right? Because
Yes.
that's how we talk and
Yeah.
different, let's say a person from India who speaks an Indian language versus a person from Iran or Germany, they would learn something, they would write it down
Yes.
to again to teach others in their native language. But now that knowledge that both of these groups of people, right, would have were not shared amongst each other. But now you have that invention of printing press
Yes.
in Germany, right? They printed. They're like, okay, well, why not we translate now?
Hmm.
But now they understood. Now they can share the knowledge that they were having, and that's how Germany advanced. That's crazy.
Yes. Yes. And so another aspect of learning is that Indian subcontinent is kind of a little misunderstood. So there are two major events in Indian subcontinent's history that people usually don't talk about.
Okay.
Okay, first, Indian colonization of Indian subcontinent, right? So when we talk about this, mostly who is the colonizing power?
The
India?
British.
That's not true.
Okay.
The first colonizing power was Portuguese.
Hmm.
Okay, so then the question is why?
I would say trade.
It was trade for sure, but why Portuguese and not somebody else?
Mm, must have something to do with the history of the Portuguese
Yes.
people.
So what happened that Ottomans, they capture the last great Roman empire's trading control center, which now we call Istanbul. Back then it was Constantinople.
Mm,
So if you look at so Italians were the major trader groups, and within Italy there were two cities which were trading what you call centers. One, Venice, which was on
okay,
the east coast of Italy, and the other one, Genoa, which was on the west coast of Italy.
okay. Let's pull it up on the screen here. One second.
All right,
It's going to be interesting. Okay. What was the country you said?
Italy. So Italian, look for the Italian peninsula, and then within that, both the west coast and east coast.
This is a
Yep,
good map.
this map is good.
Okay.
So if we zoom in, you will see Genoa on the west coast and Venice on the east coast.
Okay. Yep.
So Venice was the closest to what you call a new Ottoman capital,
Okay.
Istanbul, or the old Byzantine Roman capital, Constantinople. So they immediately made a deal that, okay, so most of the traffic was over land. So with the capture of, Istanbul or Constantinople, the Ottomans had the ultimate control over East-West trade.
Mm,
So they made a deal with Venice saying, okay, well, we will just do this with you guys. And when Venetians kicked out Genoans, their competition. So Genoa people became jobless. And there were two jobless brothers
in
in them.
yeah.
And they were engineers by profession. So they go to, and guess one brother's name was what? Christopher Columbus.
Oh, the great Christopher Columbus.
Okay. So Christopher Columbus, so these Genoa people, they immigrate. They immigrate and they go to the newly formed Catholic empires, newly formed Catholic what you call uh, countries. Just like say you and I, we immigrated, right? Because our
Right.
talent is such that we can say, you know what, we can go over there and
Hmm.
where the talent is appreciated, and we can, make a better living. Let's go, right?
Yeah.
So they are the mathematicians and engineers of their time, and you know what their specialty is? Map making.
Mm.
So map
Oh,
making at that time was one of the great passions in Europe. Nobody else
okay.
in the world was doing had the interest of map making the way they were interested in Europe. So Christopher Columbus is actually a map maker. We know him as a person who captured, Americas or discovered America or something, right? But really he was a map maker, and so was his brother. Like now having two brothers and both of them are software engineers. I'm just giving an example,
Yeah.
right? Immigrating from one country to another. And that's the beauty of human history. So they go and they go to Spain first.
Hmm.
And Spain and Portugal, those are the two Catholic powers. And the Pope at that time is the Spaniard. So they both go to Pope and they are now competing. Portugal
Hmm.
and Spain, they are competing with each other for power. And guess what? They both are on Atlantic coast. So what is their
Okay.
cause about? Control of Atlantic Ocean, the shipping and fishing and all that stuff. And because it's the Atlantic Ocean, the ocean is much bigger compared to Italians who are on Red Sea, on Mediterranean Sea, which is like a small lake compared to Atlantic Ocean. So the ships that
100%.
they are making are much smaller because those ships are supposed to go travel between Cairo, or no, not Cairo, the Egyptian coast and Italian coast. So all the
Right.
stuff from India and China is being what you call put
Transported, yeah.
transported over Arabian desert to Syria, to either modern day Lebanon or to modern day Egyptian coast. And that's where they load into these smaller ships and then transport them to Venice or Italy. But Portugal
Mm.
and Spain, they are on a much bigger ship. So they have to design bigger ships who can actually survive in that much bigger ocean. And
Okay.
guess what? It introduced the new technology. And because the oceans were much bigger, they needed much better maps. And hence, the value of people like Columbus and his brother was much higher in Spain and Portugal compared to in Italy.
Mm. Makes sense.
Okay. So then guess what? They actually they go to first, I believe, Portugal, and then they go to Spain.
Okay.
But before that, they because these are two are competing powers, right? So they both go to Pope, and Pope doesn't want to see two Catholic countries fighting with each other. So Pope says, look, Spain. So he draws. So there is a globe, in his office. So
Right.
he takes a stick and then he draws a line in the middle of Atlantic Ocean, and he says, okay, left of this line, Spain, that's your territory. Right of this line, Portuguese,
It's
that's your
Italian.
territory.
Yeah.
So Portuguese are happy in one way because they feel that they got all the spice, India and all that stuff, and Middle East. But the Spaniards are looking for the westward travel and go to China that way. Because ultimately, they both Portugal and Spain, they were the Amazon.com of their time.
Ooh.
They wanted to cut the middleman. So listen, Indian textile is being produced in Gujarat state, in Ahmedabad.
Hmm.
Who is taking the cut?
Those
First,
middlemen.
first, Arab traders come to the port of Dio. Are you familiar with Gujarat port of Dio?
I,
DIO,
I'm familiar with the Gujarat and the port there. Yes.
right? So they come to the port, Dio port, pick up all the textile, and they pay, let's suppose, $1 per yard,
Correct. They would have their own commission. Yep.
right? Then they go to Dubai
You have to stop there,
or Abu
refuel,
Dhabi,
whatever.
right? Persian Gulf or Basra in Iraq, and then they sell it over there for $2. So they made $1 by transporting this. And then the caravans pick up that cloth and then they take it, to the next port in Jordan or in Mecca in Saudi Arabia or something, and they sell it over there and they make another dollar. So this thing that
Mm.
started with $1 is now $2. Then the person who actually takes it to the Syrian or Egyptian port, they take another dollar. I'm just giving a rough example. So now the same cloth, which was costing $1 per yard in Ahmedabad or the
Which is
port
now
over
two, three
there,
dollars.
is now $5, at the coast. And then it goes to Italy, and the Italian traders add another $2, $3 to it, and now it's $8 a yard. So Portuguese say, why not? We keep
Go back.
$7.
Go directly and deal with the traders from Ahmedabad and
So
make
that's
huge
why.
money.
So the Pope's action and Portuguese ships and their mentality of Amazon.com changed the world. And when they came to to Port of Dio in Gujarat, guess who were the rulers there? There were three controllers. There were three
Okay.
controllers who were controlling Gujarat's trade, export trade. First, Sultan of Gujarat.
Okay.
Two, Venetian ships, because they were all the way here, because they wanted to make sure that the cloth that they're buying from here, it actually gets to Venice properly.
Hmm.
So they knew what the rates are. Everyone knew in the world. You know now that a
Yeah.
gadget from China costs like 50 cents. And by the time it gets to US, it is like $15, right? So there's a difference. There's a profit margin that every person is taking cut. So that's how. So there was when Egyptian Mamluk had their navy posted in Gujarat. Ottomans had posted their navy in Gujarat to guard the ports.
Why?
Okay.
Everybody was there,
Oh
and
yeah.
everybody knew the rates. Okay.
Oh yes. So Portuguese, because Portuguese are completely blocked. There is no Suez Canal, right?
Yeah.
Mediterranean Sea is completely blocked. Ottomans, Venetians, Egyptians, they all are their navies, total control on Mediterranean, Red Sea, Persian Gulf. So guess what? Portuguese say, how are we going to get to India? So they travel all the way across around Africa, across the Horn of Africa.
Wow.
Okay. And then they show up in the port of Dio in Gujarat.
That's a long journey.
It is.
Months.
Yes. But remember, they have in their mind $7 per yard profit.
That's a big margin.
Big margin. They can actually undercut Ottomans. They can undercut Egyptians. They can sell the same thing for $5, still make $4 per yard
Mm.
profit. So the question
It's.
is, why people in Ahmedabad or in Port of Dio, when they saw the first ship, Portuguese ship,
Mhm.
they said, F it,
There
man.
is a demand. Why not?
Why not build our own merchant navy and build the same ship, um, uh, uh, copy what you call the Portuguese have. And because those ships were bigger, guess what? Their guns were bigger too.
Mm.
They could have more people on more navy people on them. So when the first group of Portuguese navy showed up in Gujarat, guess what? They utterly demolished the navies of Ottomans, Sultan of Gujarat, because Sultan of Gujarat never thought, and the people of Gujarat never thought about building their own navy at the same level as Portuguese. And
Wow.
they captured Port of Dio, and that was the first major colonization of India. That people don't know how it happened and why it happened.
That is a history lesson for me. And I'm from Gujarat, as you know, and I don't know, right? Which goes to the education system as well. Sometimes
No,
it's, well,
I
not in terms of the
yeah,
what you know, but I think there's still so much more to
more to
know
learn.
about,
Yes, that's what I would say. That's what I would
right?
say. Um, so what is the strength of Indian subcontinent? The Indian coastal states, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Andhra. They are the historic. You know what the strength of Andhra is?
Andhra Pradesh?
No.
I'm not sure. Enlighten me.
Long millions years ago,
Okay.
in the eastern coast of Indian subcontinent, there were major volcanic eruptions.
Okay.
And as part of that eruption, that land got blessed with precious stones, including diamonds.
Oh, okay. So that is the big history of Andhra Pradesh.
Yes.
All right.
So Andhra Pradesh, and by the way, I'm sharing it with you by not saying, "Oh, I know everything." I want you to cross check, and I would love to hear that. No, I traveled over there. That's not true. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, so being coastal states, each Indian state, but particularly coastal states, they have developed their own culture over thousands of years. And you know
Hmm.
that most of the billionaires in India, they are actually from Gujarat.
I agree.
Why?
Businessmen, I would say. I don't know. Maybe it's the
Global
there's
traders,
something
global traders,
trading.
global traders.
Yes. And then
When you are in a coastal state, you are connected to the rest of the world. If you are an inland
yes,
state,
you are the
you're
local.
cut
You're
off.
only there.
You are cut off and you are dependent on the nearest coastal area.
I agree.
But you are cut off. It means that your mentality will be inland mentality.
I agree.
And the inland mentality then will depends, is your geographical area flat
What is
or
it?
mountainous?
Mm,
If it is mountainous, how high are the mountains? Which means how isolated you are from the rest of the world. So the coastal people are the least isolated.
yes.
Mountain people are the most isolated.
Yeah.
And rest of them are in between these two isolation scale. So Andhra produced Kohinoor, for example, the
I was
famous
about to say that. Yeah,
it
I was
comes.
about to say that. Yeah.
But the thing is that it was in the crown of one of the Andhra Pradesh Raja. And then somebody else from the north comes and captures it and says, "Oh, this is mine now," right? And ultimately, it ends up in London. So what I mean to say is the biggest strength of Indian subcontinent is one, which is shared strength. That there are so many languages that they always had a second language to communicate across. Yes, exactly like that. Yes.
Beautiful.
So the
And
last time this diamond was actually in Lahore, Pakistan,
mm,
in Ranjit Singh's possession. So when British captured Lahore, they actually got the diamond from there.
okay.
Not
So it
only that,
traveled.
was that? Oh
It
yeah,
it traveled. Okay.
it traveled. So not only that they got diamond from Lahore, they also got the youngest son of Raja Ranjit Singh, Duleep Singh. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So they took diamond. So everyone says, "Oh, they were the looters. They took the diamond and all that stuff," right? But they actually took Duleep Singh with them, and Duleep Singh became Queen Victoria's adopted son. So Duleep Singh actually grew up in Buckingham Palace, not as a prisoner, but as a son.
Mm. As a son. So that was the adopted son of the
He was
queen.
an adopted son.
And that's him, I would say.
I believe so. Yes. So the question is why,
Okay.
right? Because that's what AGI we should be doing when we are training AGI. Basically,
Should
that's
be.
what we should be driving AGI by. So there are three. There are three. By the way, we didn't cover it today. Maybe next time. There are three. This is but not my research. There
Hmm.
are three questions that humans ask based, and that's what turns simple information into knowledge.
Yep.
And it's
What?
called golden circle.
Yeah.
Okay, three circles. So the inside, the most inside circle is why.
Okay.
Outside it, and I sometimes mix that too. Outside is how, and then the most outside is what, something like that. So if you ask these three questions in that series, so it's like a golden circle. I think the guy's name is it starts with S.
Like this.
Yes. So these circles,
Oh,
yeah.
Simon. Simon Sinok. Simok.
Yes, Simak. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
love that guy.
Simak. Yes, yes. So the first question is why. So I want AGI to be trained or developed by saying why. So I don't know if you were taking a class with me, that one of the things that I discuss about is, hey, always ask a question why. And funny thing is,
I remember.
do you remember when I said that the most annoying thing that the kids do around
Ask a
ours
question.
is they say why.
Yep. And then
And we
the
beat them.
parents will say, no, stop.
Exactly. Because I said so.
Yep. Because I said so.
You know what I mean? Which is
Yes.
the worst possible thing to do with kids, is to say, "Well, oh, because I said so." No. They are intellectually curious. They are not disrespectful. Their intellect is forcing them to ask that question to understand why we are taking certain action.
Mm,
So that's why. So Indian subcontinent, right? Because people say India is a country. No, it's not a country. It's a collection of countries. So India is an empire. I know empire is a bad word, but empire
mm,
means a governing system that rules over many, many different territories, not
okay.
homogeneous, but different territories. So if you go to each Indian state, it will have its own language, its own culture, its own history.
I agree.
And only the absolute dictators tried to rule India as a one country, because anyone who had any inkling of respect for individual countries gave some kind of independence to those countries, which was, by the way, inherent in old systems, because we didn't have telegraph, telegram, railway,
Mm-hmm.
modern communication. So those countries existed for thousands of years as individual countries, because no one could go and capture them and hold them, because no one could, right? So they would simply say, okay, pay me some tax and do whatever you
That's
want.
it.
Okay.
So who was
So
that first person who?
British,
So the oh yes, the British were the ones who was
who
like,
actually united India. We say they divided India, but actually they united India.
in a way, yes.
Okay. Because they established a unified control over a, because now the technology had advanced. So they had railway, they had telegraph, they had instant communication, so to speak. So the humans could, I mean, so but because these were all different countries, right? So they all had their own language. So how would they communicate with others?
Mm,
They always had a second language. So that's why one of the hallmark of Indian subcontinent is that they are bilingual.
yeah.
So now the question is, so that's a why question, right? Why in India people are bilingual? Because this,
Uh,
right? Next question. So what is that other language, and how did it came to be?
yes.
So before British, that second language was mostly Persian.
Persian language.
Persian, not from Iran.
Okay. Then.
Iran, imagine Iran just like a province who also speaks Persian. But Iran, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, all of them, they spoke one or the other, what you call, version of Persian. And that's why Western part of India, all the way up to Gujarat, Punjab,
Mhm.
Rajasthan, and what you call the Sindh, and not, they all had Persian as the second language, and that impacted pretty much all the way to Bihar as well.
Mm,
Okay, so the southern states were less Persianized, but they were too, because they had to use a second language because of the traders. Because southern states, especially the coastal states, they were multilinguals to begin with, because they're trading with the world.
correct.
So
Correct.
that means that the whole Indian subcontinent was either bilingual or multilingual, which is even next up level.
Mm,
So when British came, they were astounded and beautifully happy that people picked up English as their own mother tongue.
which
And
is
when you,
amazing for them.
yes, because they went to the whole world, and nowhere else they found somebody who millions of people who could. I think at British time the total population of Indian subcontinent was about 40 million, if I'm not mistaken. So
Okay.
can you imagine 40 million people ready to learn, pick another language, because it was just another language. It was not British or colonial language. It was just another language, and people loved. So
Learning a new
they were
language.
mentally trained to actually pick up other language.
Brain.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Which, by
Okay.
the way, our books over there in that region don't emphasize on it. Don't, right?
Hmm. And well, in that case too, like if you are speaking multiple languages too, like do you think the meaning gets lost as well? Like, for example, the older books, like you mentioned that Persian language and the local language, let's say if it's Gujarat or if it's a South, if it's a Telugu or if it's a Gujarati, they would have their books in their language. They are trying to convey some meaning. But now Britishers came, the Persians came and say, "Hey, oh, this is our language. Let's everybody use our language. Let's transit everything, or let's destroy everything and let's start something new." Does the meaning get lost? So that means
Oh, that's a very interesting question. It can be answered on multiple levels, but in brief, people were protective of their own language as well. Even though they were speaking another language, they were protective of their language. They had their own books, they had their own culture. Like even today, people can speak Telugu in their own home,
I
and
agree.
another language, maybe Hindi, in the street, and speak English, in the office, and still be okay, because the thousands of years have enabled people to actually compartmentalize different languages in the way that they respect each language, speak each language, and still protect their own language. So you can find in southern languages, in northern languages, hundreds, centuries old literature which is there, and people are saying poetry in Telugu or in other languages, right? And they still speak English when they go to office
Hmm.
or they go to a university. They can still speak in English. So it is actually a beautiful flourishment of humanity that allowed certain people to become super specialized this way. So it's a credit, not a negative thing. Yeah.
So now I come from India. I'm
Yeah.
multilingual. Like I speak the local language of Gujarat, which is Gujarati.
Yeah.
The national language, again, this is, I'm gonna
Question, but
disclaimer,
let's say, yeah.
Hindi. And I
Yes.
also speak Hindi, right? Or
Yes.
an English as well,
Yeah.
right? And somewhat of it, and if you speak Hindi, you
Mhm.
can pick up, those sister languages and other
Yep.
languages. For example, like you can understand somewhat of an Urdu,
Yep.
somewhat of Sanskrit, all of those languages, right?
Absolutely.
So how does that, like, does that person who's multilingual, is that a special person? So like, I mean, does does that affect how that person would think, how they would do certain things, how creative they are? In the most simplest way, does that make them powerful? Does that make their brain powerful?
I wouldn't. I mean, this is a capacity, right? So I don't want to
Well,
you know, overly positive it or overly negative it, because
hmm
human brain is weird thing. They say like some people who are autistic,
hmm
in other words, they can do their daily work,
yeah,
reliably, but they're really awesome mathematicians. So should we say their brain is limited or more powerful? So that's why I try to avoid those type of terms. I simply say it's a capability that people got. It's like it's like a orthopedic surgeon who is a poet.
okay,
Is it is it super special? Well, that person it is, right? Because that person can do surgery, fix bones, and then say poetry, right? But is that something part of like some grand scheme? I don't know. Maybe it is a lot more individual than national. However, we can certainly define certain region and say, you know what, this region has these specialities. They
right.
don't make them superior, These are the specialities.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
So
Yeah.
no, I think it does. So now when I know you also speak another language apart from English.
Mhm.
So when I ask you a question, do you think in the same language? What language do you think in?
This is a really a subject which obviously linguists can define a lot better. I
Yeah.
feel that really it is your practice. You probably process this in multiple languages. Your brain is
Hmm.
now so used to different languages that you don't really have to do specific translation. There is an interesting book, by the way. That's another podcast. Okay. It's called Thinking Slow and Fast.
Thinking slow and fast.
Okay.
Okay.
Thinking Slow and Fast. So, Thinking Slow and Fast is a wonderful book. Yeah, Daniel Kahneman. So, this book, you pair this book with another book called Atomic Habits.
Oh, I love that book.
Okay. So, combine these two books because one book explains one aspect of it, habits only, and this book explains not only habits but other longer term things as well.
Hmm.
Okay. So what happens is, once you read the book, you let me know what your thinking is, but I'll give you my version of my understanding of this book. Okay.
Okay.
So think about, so thinking fast and slow. Okay. So our brain has got two systems, fast system and slow system.
Right.
Don't take them as fast as good and slow as bad. No,
Yeah,
those are just capacities or capabilities.
I agree.
So fast part of the system has got built-in um, pre-built libraries.
Yeah.
So, for example, when in Python you write print, you are not writing the whole assembly code for it. You simply say print, and then the Python library already has specific drivers and the way it's going to interact with the operating system on which you are running it, and then it's going to figure out that if you want to say print, whether it's
Right.
going to go to screen or it's going to go to the printer, all those associated drivers for the monitor, for all that stuff unique to your machine are already built in. You don't have to code them every time you want to print something.
Mm-hmm.
So our brain actually builds same kind of libraries all the time. We call them habits.
It becomes intuitive after that, and you don't even realize them
You
sometimes.
don't even realize it. In fact, they say that, let's say if you saw some kind of bug flying around your face and you swatted it
Hmm.
or pushed it away, if you did it without you knowing it, that's where your brain is using a library routine, swat away the bug, or somebody who is intruder in your space.
Mm.
Slow process the one when we start thinking about, okay, so what's the future application of AGI?
That is not normal part of the routine, and you would have to put some
unless
thought on it, right?
unless of course I become an AGI expert, then bunch of AGI related concepts will become my library routine.
Mm.
Then I won't need to reproduce them. I think, I may be wrong, I
Yeah.
think it is applicable to languages as well. That wherever, which system, whatever you are, your environment and all that stuff, you're constantly building libraries. And I believe that now, let's say having lived in United States for X number of years, because you are constantly using certain languages, you probably have built-in libraries that you don't even know you are using them, and your brain is simply picking that up and getting those things done, uh, you know uh, and doing it so beautifully.
See, you know, so I have two things to say on this, okay?
Uh-huh.
One, it's like we have caching in a way, like, we have a person
Perfect
inside our
example.
brain
I love
saying,
it.
hey,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
use this a lot. I'll keep this with me.
Yes.
You don't think about these things a lot. Well, guess what? If you ask me for that information, I will have to go back and retrieve it. That's going to take some time. And the second thing that I was thinking, right, when you
Mhm.
mentioned like sometimes we do things or habits does some things that we don't even realize them on why we do them, and that in a funny way it correlates me the term of matrix. Like
Yes,
we are people say we are stuck in the matrix outside, but I feel like this conversation,
inside.
we have the matrix inside our brain.
Exact- Wow, wow. I never thought about that. Yes, yes,
you know
exactly. Yeah,
um, and slowly we are getting tangled in this matrix that we can't
yes,
escape, and sometimes we have to think critically on every single decision you make, right? Because we make, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of decisions per day, and most of them our brain makes it for you, and we don't even realize them. And it's this efficient system. I remember us having the conversation about how our brain is very efficient, on tasks, right? And that's why it's very difficult for these external machines like this GPUs and CPUs. They cannot be as efficient as our brains. The I remember also on that same note, the I forgot what the amount of time it takes for the humans to think, the I don't know, for the neurons to fire, versus the same thing for a CPU to do,
yeah.
right? The amount of electricity, right? That's the electricity it takes, right? It's different. So that's all I had. I think it
Absolutely.
was.
Yeah. Beautiful. In fact, I was gonna say, I was trying to focus on the software side, and you started looking at the hardware side as well, and that was beautiful. Cache, RAM, and the virtual memory. So we
Yeah.
constantly move things, between these three, like how quickly we need it and all that stuff, all the way down to something that we
Hmm.
made it, after a long time. So one of the things that going back to the multi languages, right? So what happened that this the folks in Indian subcontinent, they were so used to different systems and trying different systems. Guess what? Another
Okay.
thing that they practiced that was so amazing was that they actually picked up on the new institutions to run a country.
To run a country.
Yes. For example, before British came over, well, okay, so first of all, the situation was such that Portuguese come in, then they get kicked out.
Hmm.
Okay. And they are only limited to like Goa and all that stuff. The reason why, because back in Europe, all the European powers are fighting with each other. So people say,
Hmm.
oh, British colonized India. No, long before that, they had already colonized Spain.
Yeah.
And we don't emphasize colonize or control that Spain territory. Why? Because there was a major fight between the navies of Spain and Britain. Britain won.
Mm.
Okay, so in other words, the French and British, when they showed up in Indian subcontinent, before that they were at each other's throat for previous centuries, and they were practicing every day and all that stuff. And when they left Europe, there was only one way to get out of Europe, was not overland, because Ottomans were sitting there, and they had to do a lot of fighting to actually get to Indian subcontinent or China.
Yeah.
And the easiest way is to just go
Go
over
around.
the ocean. That was one factor. The other factor was, the other day I saw some statistics that you need one large container ship which can carry 10,000 trains worth of load.
That's the base of like one big
Shipping, shipping.
okay.
Yes. So shipping is so cheap in every which way,
Hmm.
because overland you are paying taxes to every territory that you're going through.
Yeah.
In the ocean, as long as you
It's
have a
it's
good
your
yield,
world. It's a free
no
world
one
there.
can come and stop you and say, give me money. You know what I mean? Now, if you go to a port, the port people may say, hey, listen, we're going to sell you, fuel and water and food and all that stuff, pay us money, but they can't stop you. If you have people and a couple of big guns on your ship, no one can stop you. So these Europeans actually colonized each other, and the ultimate victors were France and Britain.
Mm.
So they colonized Europe first before coming to Africa, India, or China or Indonesia, which we don't realize. We simply say, oh, Europe, they got out of Europe and they colonized. No, it was not that. It was a multi step process where they colonized Europe first, just two countries. And then you can ask the follow up question. If Germans were so good in knowledge,
Why did they?
why French and Britain? And I'm not going to say it's $1 million question. I'm going to say it's a Dutch question.
The Dutch question.
Yes.
Okay.
So what happened that the Portuguese show up in India, right?
Hmm.
So they are not defeated by Britain, by the way. They are actually
Okay.
defeated truly. Portuguese are truly defeated by Dutch,
Mm.
and not because of their superior military.
Okay.
They defeated Portuguese based on their superior financial systems.
Financial systems were that strong for them.
Yes. So in fact, Mughal India was not defeated by British army.
Okay.
It was defeated by British financial system that they copied from Dutch.
Mm. Okay.
So what is that financial system?
Is it the tax system?
No. It's magical.
It's
What
magical.
you do
Okay.
is, yeah, you have $1 million and suddenly you have $10 million. That's a magic.
Okay.
In fact, if I have $1 million, I can immediately turn it to 10 million. And if I'm a little bit more what you call organized, I can turn that into 100 million. Whereas if you were sitting in Gujarat, or if you were sitting in Delhi, or if you were sitting, in Hyderabad, your 1 million was just 1 million.
Mm.
And that's the reason Spanish got defeated, because Spanish too, their 1 million was just 1 million, but Dutch 1 million was either 10 million just off the base. And if they played a little bit, they could make it into 100 million. Now you cannot compete with 100 million, let alone 10 million, with $1 million. There is no way. Because you have the capacity to buy cloth from Gujarat in bulk,
Right.
like Costco model.
Hmm.
So Costco model is
Wholesale.
buy bulk and defeat on the prices, right?
Hmm.
So these people, Dutch were able to deal with Kerala when it came to what you call black pepper. Kerala is known
Mm.
for black pepper. I think this is probably the world center of black pepper, Kerala.
Wow.
All right, and then what you call Indonesia area is really for cloves and star anise and cardamom and all that stuff. So so
Sorry.
so so yeah, I mean, so thanks for this discussion, because you are a great listener, and I mean, I should give you a break and